For me, one of the most creative parts of movie making is the choice and use of music. And some of my films have waited many years to be completed because I couldn't find just that right musical track that matched the mood that I was trying to create. But it is possible to rearrange music and sound to get a better fit. And that's particularly easy if you're using a computer edited system, because you can create any number of soundtracks and then mix them together to suit your final film. Now, the example that I want to analyze is the title sequence from my own video, Olden Virginia. And I'm going to use the pictures in their final edited state, but I'm going to show you how I built up and added different layers of the soundtrack, hopefully to better effect. In fact, I hope that you will see how the value of the pictures themselves have been significantly improved because of the way that the sound has been put together. Now, the story starts in a natural landscape of a forest before man has appeared. And I already had the idea of creating a visual montage of animals and trees that was going to be quiet and natural in that sense. There's no hint of where that forest is. It isn't until you get to the actual title, the wording of the title, that you realize it's in America. And it was at that point that I felt I wanted to introduce the theme music, which gave the impression of being some kind of wandering cowboy western theme. And that would eventually fade out under the commentary and be replaced with some Native American music, which would cover the sequence about the native camp. Now, after a lot of searching, a lot of playing music, which is another enjoyable part of the hobby, I finally ended up choosing one of the lesser known tracks from the soundtrack of the film Dances with Wolves as my main theme. Now, it starts very quietly with a beautiful crescendo after about 12 seconds. And I decided that I would start the music before the title appeared and align that crescendo with the first words of the title. For the quieter natural sequence of the forest, prior to that, I put down a soundtrack of birdsong and also found a plaintive Native American flute on a CD called Dreamcatcher, which flowed naturally and gently and smoothly into the main theme tune. It was beginning to feel okay. It was beginning to conjure up the mood that I was trying to create. But somehow it still lacked the dramatic punch that I wanted to grab the audience's attention at the beginning of the movie. And then I found another CD of American native music called Sacred Spirit. And one of the tracks on it was some native chanting, which started with some very dramatic drum beats. And I thought that the power of that first drum beat coming through the peace and tranquility of the birdsong and the flute would be really effective. But I didn't want the chanting this early in the film, so I cut the drums as soon as the theme music started. And then at the same time, I used the rhythm and the beat of the drums and the beat of the theme tune to provide cutting points between the pictorial shots. It was definitely getting better, but I still wanted more drama, more impact, more anticipation. The original orchestral theme tune had its own beautiful flows and crescendos, but I thought I could improve that by copying some of the individual drum beats from the native chanting and then pasting them repeatedly, copying them repeatedly along a separate soundtrack running parallel to the orchestra, so that when played together, the drum from the native chanting would emphasize the rhythm of the orchestra. Now, I think the difference is quite effective, although it's quite subtle. I doubt if many members of the audience have ever particularly noticed the fact that they're listening to two separate pieces of music being played back at the same time. In fact, I hope they didn't notice, because I believe that mood should be something that you create that slowly creeps up on an audience, rather than that they are made too aware of how you are manipulating them in order to feel that way. So let's listen to the opening few bars of the original orchestral piece to see how it sounds with its own natural flows and crescendos. And now we'll listen to the same piece with the addition of a few dramatic drum beats. Now, eventually, I cross-faded from the original orchestral theme tune into the native chanting, which I had cut off the drums earlier. The native chanting provided a beautiful background for the native camp. But there was another subtle advantage in what I had done, because the drum beats, remember, are actually separate from the orchestral theme, and so it is possible to continue them over the join with the chanting, so that the drum beats themselves become a sound link between these two separate sequences. Finally, we come to the addition of the commentary and some additional natural sound effects, such as a horse whinny, which causes the deer to look up in a startled way. And eventually the whole sequence locks together. Now, you've now seen the title 4 times, why don't you sit back and relax and enjoy the whole video?